and kind of be able to talk with you a little bit about options in this really unprecedented time. I was hoping that when fall came along that we were going to be back in school and things would be a little bit better as far as the COVID pandemic, but obviously we're back, and it is scary, it is difficult, but I think that working together, we're gonna make some progress. Oh my gosh, something just happened here. Hang on. Okay. So I got this together because I just thought, as a foundation, we're fortunate to have this foundation, because alone we're just one drop, but together we're an ocean, and oceans make waves. We are in this together, and because of the foundation, you're not alone. And I will share with you just really quickly that I wrote a letter on behalf of the foundation to the U.S. Department of Education. And I wanted to ask for a meeting with the deputy director. I sent it to Washington, hoping that I would get a response, and I did. So I'm waiting for them to schedule a meeting with us. And because of our numbers, because there's a lot of you, it allowed me really to go there and say, look, I represent a lot of people and a lot of children who are not really going to be able, many of your kids are really not going to be able to go back to school, and possibly not be able to go back for the foreseeable future. So we need guidance, and I'm excited to say, and I don't know what's going to happen because obviously I'm waiting to meet with them, but at least we have an audience. We have a chance to dialogue. And I want to work with the schools and work with the teachers to be creative here and try to pull something together that's going to work. So the questions I have for all of you are, what options are available for next school year? You know, what are my rights given that my child has special needs? What constitutes FAPE, or free and appropriate education, during COVID-19? Should I request an IEP meeting? Do I have a right to do compensatory education? Does the school need to provide that? And what about therapy aids and social skills training and all that stuff that we've gotten into all of your IEPs? I mean, a lot of you that have worked with me, you know that we work very hard to get all these extra services in the program. What about all of those services? So that's really what I'm going to cover in this brief presentation, and then we're going to open this up to dialogue and questions and, you know, kind of putting our heads together. And I'd love to have you, really, I'm inviting you to email me with your questions for the Department of Education, because if we do get an audience, I want this to come from parents, what your concerns are, what your experiences are, so that we can represent you and try to get some dialogue, try to get some information from them that we can take back to districts, and I guess, you know, push a little bit and make sure that the needs are being met. So first of all, what options are really available for next school year? I think this depends really on your district, but obviously there's a push by our president for in-school instruction with shortened schedules or social distancing. I think many districts are having a lot of trouble pulling that off. I know that there's a lot of teacher unions that are objecting to going back because they're afraid of liability, or they're afraid of bringing the virus home to their families. So personally, I don't know that in-school instruction is going to really get off the ground very much, but I'm hoping at some point that kids are going to be back in the brick and mortar environment. Distance and virtual learning is going to be offered. That's going to probably be the platforms that most of you are going to be involved with. Some districts are offering combination options. We might be able to pull together an in-home instruction with a live person coming into your home, but you know, if you've got a child that has immune compromised system and you've got a lot of health concerns, we want to make sure that person is coming in with PPE equipment and everything is going to be safe for your family. There's also you could opt possibly through your district for private online options or public options that are not with your natural school district. But I don't think that school that we knew as we knew it in the past is going to be an option for most people. And for our kids with the 22Q community, even if other kids go back, you know, I don't know how many children are really going to be able to go back full time for this school year. We'll see if they can get a vaccine together. You know, we hear things on the news that are encouraging, but, you know, I don't know if I would have sent my child if they were in school with 22Q back into a classroom unless I was sure that things were really taken care of. So what are your rights as a parent? If, you know, your child has special needs, the IEP is the place that determines placement. Homeschooling, if your child is, you know, if everybody in the district is virtual, then, you know, it's really, you're virtual, but this is a change of placement. It's a change to what was being offered to you as an IEP holder. So that is the placement and how that is implemented is part of the IEP process. And you have a right to call an IEP meeting and dialogue with the district about how they're going to implement that with your child. Even though some districts are asking parents to select a particular learning environment for the general student body, this doesn't really apply to kids with IEPs. You can pull together a very unique and specific program based on what your child needs. Even though the district is doing other things with the general student body, your placement and your educational program is IEP driven. So it does not need to be what the district offers the general population. The placement, whatever they decide to provide and you guys decide together to agree to, has to be appropriate given your child's needs, and it has to ensure adequate yearly progress. So they can't just say, well, you could log on to our general education classroom and everybody's virtual. If that doesn't work for your child because they can't pay attention, they're at a different level, they were having a hard time in the regular classroom paying attention, they're not going to pay attention virtually. If they're not getting that help that they need, that's not an appropriate program. And that's what the IEP team needs to come together with and figure out, what does your child need to learn and how can we implement that given the virtual platform? The decision of that has to be data driven. It's not something that is just the whim of the district. You know, they can't basically say, well, we don't offer that, we're not offering that, or the district is saying no to that. They really cannot do that in my mind. And again, I will say to you, I'm not an attorney. So this is, you know, based on my reading and based on what I understand. But yeah, districts need to work with you as a parent of a special needs child. And if they say, well, we're not doing speech therapy or we don't do virtual therapy, they can't just decide that. They can't just unilaterally cut the therapy. If your child needs 3 times a week speech therapy, then that is what is written in the IEP. If they say that they're going to cut it down to once a week, then it has to be data driven. Is that going to be enough for your child? And if it's not, then they need to pull together either compensatory education at a later date, or they need to find other therapists if the school district cannot provide it. So what rights does your child really have here? Well, you know, as a community, we have to be respectful. We have to understand that this is a pandemic. You know, the school district is doing their best in many ways, but you know, your child's right include what the IEP says it includes. And the IEP, for many of you, was written before COVID. So it should be executed as it is written, unless it is changed in an IEP meeting. Now, because of the pandemic, that instruction may not be one-to-one in a school building, but it could be one-to-one virtually. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think, you know, maybe some options for your kids that would work reasonably well. So, you know, the district is going to come back with a reasonable program and accommodations so that your child can learn and progress toward their IEP goals. Therapy services should be provided. Your child progress should be monitored, and testing should be done and reevaluated according to IDEA. I don't think a lot of districts were doing testing at all in the spring and keeping data on progress monitoring. But now that the beginning of the school year is happening, this is something that we are going to require of whatever program is set up, that district is going to keep data and give us testing results, let us know how these kids are doing. And the district, I know that there was something just passed, I think, in Congress. I know that there's fights over funding all of this, but district money is going to education in order to get the necessary supports and materials so that your child can be instructed and he can get access to the curriculum and progress. So if the district says we don't have that, there is money, I believe, to get that. So if you find a program or if you find a platform and we think that this is going to work better for your child, we can request that the district purchase that with monies that are from the federal government if that's something that's necessary. For example, if your child doesn't have a computer or interactive computer capability, we can request that. If that's necessary for them to get instruction, the school district should provide that for you. So what constitutes FAPE? Free and appropriate education during COVID-19. The reality is the school is responsible for educating your child, not you, the parent. So if the program that they are providing is not accessible for your child unless you are sitting right there doing the teaching, that is not an appropriate program. Now, granted, we're all helping out. I mean, I, as a grandparent, am helping out my granddaughter and my grandson with their education at this point. I mean, we're all going to pitch in. This is a community. It's a family. We don't expect that everything is going to be able to be done at school, just like it's not during the regular school year. But the reality is the school is responsible for directly instructing the kids with this syndrome. You know, I think that, you know, in a lot of ways, the families had picked this all up in the spring, at least what I've heard from a lot of parents. And I think now that summer has happened and we're seeing that this may last next school year, it's very, very important that we stress as a 22Q community that our children need direct instruction by a live teacher. They cannot learn by just watching a video and doing activities. And that's what a lot of programs have been to this point. But I think that now we have to start getting more aggressive in what we're asking for. If the district comes back to you and says, well, you're getting speech therapy 3 times a week, but we're going to cut it down to once a week, don't let them cut services for reasons unless it's data driven. Your child's needs did not change because of COVID-19. Their speech didn't all of a sudden get a lot better because the virus is here. If they needed speech therapy 3 times a week before, why does the district think they don't need speech therapy 3 times a week now? It does not change because of the virus. If an aid was available before, if your children had paras, the aid is still needed in order for your child to access the general education. The question is, how are we going to get that aid on board? Is that aid going to come to your home and sit with your child as your child is watching the video, if they've got PPE equipment and you're comfortable with that? Or is the aid on the screen with your child working one-on-one? You know, how are we going to utilize the aid? But the aid time does not just go away, because the platform of delivering the services now has changed to virtual. And so I think we need to get our mindset in a different way. Last spring, we were all scrambling and trying to figure out, what are we going to do? You know, let's be patient. Let's try to get, but now I think that, you know, with fall coming, we're going to be asking that the district kind of, you know, pulls together the supports that the kids need to access what the curriculum is and to make progress and be successful. So what does this distance learning environment look like for children with 22Q? You know, I guess videos are okay for some things, or online platforms like ABC Mouse or the Alex program, or some of those are okay to a certain extent, but they require a live teacher instructing in real time. So what that entails is something like we're doing right now. It's a go-to-meeting platform. I will explain to you, or a Zoom platform. I do tutoring with high school kids for the ACT prep. And what I do to prepare for my meetings with them, I'll send them a practice test. They'll start working on some of the math problems. I may say to them, just like I would be saying to you, okay, Susie, you know, let's do the first 5 problems. You work them out, I'll work them out. After 5 problems are done, what did you get for number 1? What did you get for number 2? You know, which one did you meet? Okay, miss, which ones did you get right? You missed number 3. Okay, let's read that problem together. What did you get wrong? You know, how could you approach that differently? It's direct teaching. You know, I am online with these kids, working individually with each of them. And that's what I think your kids need to be requesting for their special education minutes, is their direct interaction with teachers in real time. Now that can be done in a with an interactive screen. It can be done with Zoom, with WebEx, with GoToMeeting. It could be done in your home if the person comes in is protected. It could be done with a small group or one-on-one at the student level in a platform, in a virtual platform. It could be a small group. And I feel at the very least, at the very minimum, it's got to be at least 2 hours a day. I don't think the kids are going to make progress through their grade level at all unless they have at least 2 hours a day for targeted academics. And then, you know, the rest of the time you could do review, you could do videos, you could do other things, you could do life skill learning. I've done some videos on things you could do around the house that are really great enriched learning experiences, but they're involved with cooking and, you know, helping around the house and learning skills based on the real world. But if you're trying to get them through a regular curriculum and they're only providing 15 minutes once a week or an hour once a week, that's not a program. It's never going to be successful. And I don't feel it's adequate for our population of children. I don't think it's adequate for any child, to be honest with you, but especially kids with learning needs like our group does. So, you know, I was online and I was trying to figure out what are these platforms? What kind of platforms can we be looking at? And I ran across one that was called My View Board. And there is a video sharing lesson example that I embedded in this. If we have time later, I can show you what this looks like. But this is a small group of kids that were invited in to this this room, and they can discuss things with the teacher. They can share their whiteboard that they have. The teacher can post questions for them in real time. It's a very interactive platform. And that's the kind of thing that I think that the school districts have to purchase, have to pull together for our population. And so I would encourage you, you could, go around and go through their website. This is just one example. I'm sure that there are multiple platforms out there that do the same thing as my view board does. But I feel that this is how this needs to go. It's much more personalized than just jumping in to watch a lesson. I mean, if a teacher is teaching in a lecture, in a large group setting, you know that kids with 22Q cannot get a lot of information out of that large group setting. It is not conducive to the way that they learn. So if that's all the district is providing your child, it's not going to be effective. So what do you do at this point? Because school is, right around the corner here. Many districts are just announcing what they're planning to do with the opening after Labor Day or at the end of August. Should you request an IEP meeting? And I would say absolutely. I would say it's critical to get in writing how your child is going to be programmed for and how this IEP is going to be implemented next year. I think the key questions are, who is going to deliver the services? It's not the parent. Who is delivering the IEP service? How often will there be a live targeted instruction that is provided? And is it one-on-one or in a small group? And how much time is my child actually going to be face-to-face with the teacher? What materials is the school going to use to deliver the instruction? And can we pull together creatively some of these whiteboards and interactive platforms that maybe might work better? How do they plan to track progress virtually? How is your child going to be demonstrating whether they know the material or not? How is the school going to be addressing their emotional needs and social skills? Can they get on a chat room with friends that is facilitated by the counselor at the school if they need to work on social skills? What are they doing to address that piece of it? And what about their anxiety and stress? Are they going to be doing some things with the kids on mindfulness or stress reduction or anxiety reduction? And the question I had as well is, are we asking them to address all academic areas? Because a lot of the IEPs are reading and math and writing, and they don't address science and social studies. So are we going to be requesting as a community that the school district pulls together appropriate programming in science and social studies as well? And music, art, phy-ed, whatever it is. I'm not, suggesting that we have to have 8 hours a day in front of a computer, because no kid is going to want to sit in front of a computer for 8 hours. But a curriculum, activities to do, especially in those related arts areas, I think is a reasonable expectation. And then also, I would say science and social studies, what skills do you want my child to have in those two curricular areas? If second grade is weather, then what skills is my child supposed to have about science? And if it's cloud study, boy, we can run outside and take a look at the clouds and learn about tornadoes and do some of those activities as a family. But you have to have an idea of what is the expectation at the grade level and how you're going to move your child through the curriculum. So another question we had is, do I have a right to compensatory education? So it really depends on what was offered during the spring when the school was closed. If you did not get therapy, if you did not get direct instruction, you probably are entitled to compensatory education. And what that means is additional time, additional tutoring, maybe a program next summer that's going to be makeup program, so that you have an opportunity for your child to recoup the skills. If they did not provide that to you, then I don't think that they provided what was in the IEP. And granted, it was a pandemic, and granted, we are going to have some leeway, and maybe they're not going to get hour to hour. But if you missed all sorts of therapy, and you missed all the social skills training, and you missed, you know, all that direct instruction, I think that there is an argument for compensatory education. And that's certainly something that could be brought up during an IEP meeting. So if therapy is written into the IEP, if aids are in there, social skills, it can be done virtually. The social skills groups can be done online. If the school's telling you we don't have that much therapy time, okay, then hire a therapist out of district. You know, just because they don't have a therapist in district that can do it, we can go to private agencies that can provide it. There are private schools out there that I'm learning a lot about. Something like Fusion Academy, which provides one-on-one tutoring. Those kinds of things can also be paid by the district. So if the district says we don't have the personnel to provide one-on-one to you, you say, okay, but then can we go to a private school to get that? And Fusion Academy is a one-on-one school with a platform like I'm explaining, with the teacher to student interactive learning. I think we should ask the assistive technology specialists in the district to come on board with us and to help us navigate what assistive technology is out there. Just like I found that platform for the interactive computer screen, and how, let's get the assistive technology people on board here. You know, how are we going to make this environment a positive learning experience for the kids? I do believe that grants from the federal government are available for technology now for districts. I think more money is being pumped into schools in order for them to reopen and provide services. So, you know, I do feel that there is going to be some extra money involved. So I think, you know, I'd love to, when I dialogue with the U.S. Department of Education, hopefully I can ask them, you know, what is available? What can we tell the districts to apply for? How do they get funding? You know, is the Department of Education willing to provide? How are they getting on board here and helping districts figure this all out? So the 22Q Family Foundation, I know that you guys are all members, but we really are here to help you. I see a lot of familiar faces online, but there are some of you that I do not know. So things that we can do is I can discuss your particular situation. We can look over the IEP. We can attend virtual IEP meetings to advocate for your child. We can explore school and learning options. We could do research to different things on your behalf. What we are not, though, is we are not attorneys, and we do not offer legal advice. And we also can't guarantee any particular outcome. But of course, as a community, we will do our very best to advocate for you and to get you and the district working together cooperatively to get the best program we can in this situation. I really feel so bad for all of you. I mean, as a former educator and as a grandma with my little granddaughter, this is awful. It's just awful. It's a bad situation. And, you know, I know some of you are saying that your kids are less stressed with the one-on-one learning, which may be a, you know, kind of a rainbow in all of this, that they're out of the school environment and home and are less stressed. But it does put stress on you as family members to pull this all together. And I don't feel you should be doing this alone. I feel the school really should be in partnership with you. So in my mind, they just need some guidance on how maybe to pull this together. So let's collectively do it. I would like to turn this over to questions, and you know, we want to hear from you, because if things worked last year in the spring, if your district was really on board and doing things well, let us know, and let us know what they are not doing well and why you're upset and why you're stressed and what the district offered before. Because these are the things that I would love to take to Washington if I do get an audience with these people and say, what is wrong here? This is what's happening and what should be happening. Help us understand what we can really be asking for here. So Lindsay, with that, I am going to turn this over to you, and you're going to facilitate our question sharing time together.
Yes, so let me get our screens back. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And Donna, that was, I think, very informative. A lot of good points there. So I didn't have any questions that are posted in the chat, but if you do have a question or want to share something that's either worked well for your district or something that you're struggling with, go ahead and you can turn off you can unmute yourself on your microphone. If it gets a little crazy, we'll try to figure out plan B, but I do want to keep this as like kind of an open forum. So if anyone has a question, you can shout it out.
So I see some hands going up.
Oh, there you go. Amy Bach, we'll start with you.
Okay.
There you go.
Timetable, like they still haven't made a final decision for regular, typical kids. What is the time? School starts here in September. What would be an appropriate timetable for them to be getting a plan together for special education? Like we've heard nothing about special education in my community.
Yes, and I'm encouraging parents to send an email now.
Okay.
Send a nice email to the district and state that you're concerned with the program for next year. I don't know your personal situation, but if you're like many parents, they're not going to send their kids back with 22Q. There's too many medical risks involved. And say, oh, and by the way, you probably want to pull together a doctor's letter. If you're making that decision based on your child's health, I would strongly recommend that you go to your doctor and get a written letter from the clinic saying that your child needs home and hospital and they're not able because of their 22Q diagnosis and whatever reason the doctor would feel that going back to school in a COVID environment would be dangerous. So we're going to present that piece of information to the district. We're going to say my child is not able to come back because of their health compromises, and we need to have a program. So we want to call an IEP meeting to pull together creatively and collectively, how this is going to be set up. Because regardless of what the other kids do, that may not apply to your child if the doctors are saying, no way is your child going back to school. This is too dangerous of an environment.
Okay.
I see Eileen raised her hand, which I actually don't know how to do on here. So you just tell me something. Go ahead, Eileen.
Hi, Donna.
Hi.
So how are you?
Good.
So Nate is entering 6th grade, and this year we were going to start a resource room 30 minutes to support executive function.
Mm-hmm.
And we got our options today. We're likely to do the e-learning for him. Our other choice was hybrid, which we don't think will work. So do you have any suggestions on what I should be looking for that, how that could play out over e-learning, how, what we should be ensuring is happening for EFS support?
So executive functioning, I think in a resource room, I'm trying to think for you, was that organization of materials and figuring out the plan for the day and that kind of thing. So
it's new to the grade school. My daughter does it in junior high, but it's new to the grade school. It's something they just started, but that is kind of the gist of it, to help with that. Right. Or she even said, like, we could take extra time to look over his assignments. So it seemed like there'd be a little more, resource help, not just organization help.
Right. So it could be that one-on-one personal time, what have you completed? What's your plan to getting the rest of this done? There's also programs like actual brain training kinds of things for executive functioning. Okay. Organizing and planning. Right. So I would say to the district, and this goes to the assistive technology person, look, we've got executive functioning as a goal on the IEP. This is virtual. What can you provide in game format? So I think a hybrid of those two things would maybe meet that goal.
Yeah, it was really, like I said, last year, I mean, everybody was just thrown together, and it was more so like, we're here for you. Let us know what you need. And I was the one driving, saying, hey, we need a planner for this. We need a graphic organizer. And obviously don't want to be in that position again. I want them driving, what he needs and all of that. But as this is a new program and new to my son, I just, was looking for a little insight into what would be good to request.
And for the rest of you as well, think about how your child handled school, and then think about them totally independent, maybe just handling this virtual instruction without a real live teacher. And if you feel that that kind of learning is not going to work, because if they were getting a lot of, maybe it wasn't totally written into the IEP, but they were pulled in small group, they were given, co-taught help in the classroom, they're not going to be independent back on a virtual, in a virtual program. So that IEP needs to be revisited based on how much actual help a child is going to need to actually be able to do the work.
Yeah, up until this point, he's in general ed with no other supports. He gets social work support, but we know that small group was happening. We know that, he was getting things in addition to that. So that's good advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wendy, I'm gonna unmute Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you
Yes,
see
we
me?
can.
Hold on, let's try it.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, I'm trying to start the video. It's not working. Can you see me?
No.
No, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Hi, Lindsay. Hi, Donna. Hi, everyone. Thanks for doing this, and we appreciate all that you're doing. I emailed some questions, Lindsay, but I did it last minute, so you might not have got them. And Donna, I think you answered some of them already. But what my biggest question here is, sorry. Alex has an aide in class now, in addition to all of his other services, but there's no minutes listed for that aide because they were with him all the time. Can we request minutes now?
Yes.
An aide could jump in and help him with the one-on-one online.
Yep.
If we're online.
Absolutely. If he had an aide in school, there's no, the need for an aide did not disappear.
Right, exactly. And then,
So, and so he would have the full school day. That would be the minutes. However many minutes there are in the full day. Now, I don't know if you're going to want that much aid time. That's something you would decide as a family what you think would be appropriate. But yes, he should be getting aid time.
Okay, and then you were asking how they were going to track the progress.
Right.
In spring, they actually had me do standardized testing.
Oh.
And I wasn't really comfortable because I didn't know if he was really doing his best since he was in the home and not at school. So I wanted to know, going forward, should we go ahead and do that testing on his school iPad in the home environment? Is it better to get some number, or is it not reflecting what it would have been in school? So I don't know if I should allow them to keep trying to test him at home or not. Just go ahead.
You know me, I'm a former math teacher.
Yeah.
So data,
Yeah.
more data.
Right.
You want to keep track of this. So, I know sometimes as a parent, when you're working with your own child, you kind of, lead the question a little bit. Oh yeah, that. Look at that.
Right.
So during those testing times, you want to really step back and have him do what he can do independently. But I would definitely progress monitor, because if things are not working well, again, the benchmark is adequate yearly progress. That's how you get minutes, and that's how you get services. So if you're not testing, you have no idea whether he's making progress or not.
Okay.
So we want the data.
Keep testing. Okay.
Yes.
And I'll definitely request another IEP meeting as soon as the district comes out with their decision.
Mm-hmm.
But they have actually set up a separate online school for our entire district to attend, separate from the school that he would be going to.
Oh.
So you have that other choice. So you can go along with what the school's doing, whether it's remote, hybrid, or in person, whatever they decide, and it could change from week to week or month to month, or you can go ahead and just enroll online and be all set in that new
Well,
school.
I would look very carefully of, just because it's online, like I said, it's got to be real-time teaching.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, an online program where the kids are not interacting with a real person is not my idea of a program.
Right. So like you said before, since he has an IEP, we could probably stay with his school, stay with his team, and request
Yes.
all at home. So
Yes.
that's probably the better way to go, but we'll figure it out. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Wendy.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody.
We have a couple other questions that were written in. I don't know if Cindy wants to unmute herself, but Cindy said, my daughter goes to a charter school. Are they required to follow all of these requirements as well?
Is it a public charter school?
Let me unmute her, see if she wants to. You there, Cindy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Cindy, is it a public school, but a charter school?
I honestly don't know. It's in the Parma School District, but it's their own group of schools, so I'm not.
Do you have an IEP?
Yes,
Under IDEA? Yes.
just an IEP.
Yeah. If you have an IEP, then they have to follow it under IDEA. Charter
Okay.
school or regular school. You may have to look at what services are available at charter schools. Sometimes charter schools don't have a lot of special education services, just depending. So, you'd have to look at what is available and what will be available. But I would call an IEP meeting and just try to sort through all of that.
Okay. Yeah, because we've been dealing with, I asked for her special ed teacher to send her work over her summer, just keep her going, and we haven't gotten anything yet.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be probably a fight with them because they're just not on top of things anyway. So.
Well, we've been patient up in till this time as
Right.
a community.
And I gave him the benefit of the doubt before because it was thrown at him, but email like math problems over summer, you know what I mean? Like that's not that difficult.
Yeah, but nobody's teaching them how to do the problems. See, that's the thing. You
Right.
can't just email them problems. You can go online and get math problems yourself.
Right.
There is no teaching going on. That's what the school has to provide. They have to have a teacher teaching
Right.
in real time, so your child can ask questions. So if they make a mistake, you can go back through it. So you could re-explain it in real time. So that's what's missing in these online programs for most kids. And that's what I'm going to be screaming about, at every IEP meeting, that, we realize it's not going to be 8 hours a day, but it's got to be at least 2 hours. I'm feeling like that face-to-face 2 hours, a teacher working with the kids. You could get by with 2 hours of time, I think, maybe even more than that for some of the older children. But the littler ones, I think if you break it up an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon or something creative, they can sit down for half an hour and do math problems with the teacher virtually. So, they're dialoguing back and forth. The only difference is the teacher's on a screen behind the computer rather than right next to them. And the way that these interactive programs are, they're whiteboards. So the teacher can actually write on the screen like they were on a whiteboard or a chalkboard. So they could see the questions and see the problems in real time. They're pretty cool, these programs. But schools have to get on board with this. They have to understand that the teaching part of this has not disappeared because of COVID. And I think that's where there's a little bit of a disconnect. And I think that's why parents are feeling a little bit alone and frustrated, because work is coming to you, but then you're needing to do the teaching of the work. And the kids are not independent to do it. Well, that's not your job. I mean, we're all going to pitch in and do some of that teaching, but the children are special needs kids. They need a special needs approach. So how are you supposed to know how to teach them math? What's your, do you use a numbered line? Do you use an abacus? Do you use skip counting? I mean, how are you supposed to start with this? You haven't taken, 4 years of college in special education. That's why, maybe you have, I don't know if some of you are special educators, but this is why they go to school. This is why there's schools of education, because you learn how to teach. Just knowing the subject doesn't mean you know how to teach the subject. Those are two different things. And so we need the teachers. We need the bodies with the expertise. And if they show us what to do, if they would sit with you and say, look, when he's stuck like this, we're going to do skip counting, or we're going to show you an array to get them to understand multiplication, or we're going to do this and this is why we're doing it. You might be able to take over if you've kind of worked with them and reinforce that later on while your child's doing more problems. But understanding how to approach the problem, that's what teachers go to school to learn to do. So that piece of it, we really want to make sure is provided to each and every one of your kids in the fall.
Thank you, Donna. So I've seen all the questions. I just want to give people an update. So I'm going to go next to Ashley, and then Carrie, and then Myra. So I see all your hands up. So Ashley, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi. I actually got several questions. One of them, our district has decided there's two options. One is virtual or one is in person. And I kind of feel like they're pressuring us to send Mallory virtually. But I've thought about, what if I got a doctor's note and maybe try to do home hospital to where they would have to send a teacher in to the home, if I should do that. Or if we did decide to go back in person and let her to go, when should I call that IEP meeting? Before school starts, right after school starts?
Well, if you're picking going back in person, if they're going to have the whole school day and they're going to implement the IEP, then you've got an IEP and you're basically done. You just go follow the IEP.
Okay.
And remember, you don't have to choose one or the other with an IEP, even though that's what they're saying. As a person with an IEP, you have the right to pull together your own program. So if you want to do a hybrid program, part in school, part out of school, you could do that. If the IEP team would agree with that. If you want to have them home, then we have to figure out, how does your child learn? And how are they going to be delivering the services? And it may be that the request would be a person in your house.
Okay.
That would depend on the child, and I wouldn't be able to say point blank that every child with 22Q needs an aide or needs somebody in the home. It's all different depending on what that child's needs are. But, I think it's also a comfort level. Are you comfortable with somebody coming into your house in a mask and so on? And what does your doctor think about going back into the school environment?
Right.
I think it's going to be a hot mess, to tell you the truth. I mean, one of the things I thought about was the anxiety, which I don't think we really think about. But if you think about, if your child goes back to school and somebody in school gets COVID, your child is going to have to come home and be isolated for 2 weeks so as to not infect the rest of your family. So what's the stress level there for your kids?
Well,
or if you bring it home and somebody in the family gets COVID, one of you guys picks it up and gets sick from it. I mean, there is that risk of bringing that anxiety into the family if COVID happens in the school setting. And one of the things that concerns me, I mean, I've been watching a lot of news and everything. There was a camp in Missouri, I think it was, where the kids went to camp and a whole bunch of them, like 20 or 30 of them, ended up with COVID. I just don't know how they're going to be able to pull this off in a school. If you've got this raging in your community and there's a lot of cases, how that is going to work without people having a positive somebody positive at the building if it's fully open. I meant, I don't know. You know, some states like Vermont is like COVID free. They have hardly any cases of it. So, you know, good for Vermont. You know, they're doing real well there. But in Wisconsin, we've got a fair number of cases. So
Yeah.
it might depend on the community as well.
Well, I think this is such a big year for Mallory because this is her first year of middle school. So that's adding the stress already. And then the stress of all this COVID and the fact that they've been out of school since like April, she just thinks it's the greatest thing. She doesn't want to go back to school. So I think we're just so confused on what to do medically. And yeah, you know, we have another daughter who, you know, is in 8th grade, but, you know, medically and just education-wise, because the MTI that we did here was awful. Like, I hate to admit this, but I answered half the stuff for her because it was frustrating for her. It was frustrating for me. I didn't know how to work the system. She didn't know how to work the system.
Right.
You know, so definitely, you know, when you talk to school districts, you know, I don't know what to do at MTI, but it's awful for these kids, or at least it was in our experience. I'm not sure how
Right.
other parents are handling that, but I feel like we wasted 3 months of, you know, I don't even know. It was frustration.
And, you know, to me, they have to pull together a reasonable program. So that's what you have to express to the district. And they really have to pull together. They're going to have to work with you and send somebody into your home or, you know, do something different because it's not working.
Right.
Right.
Did you have any other question, Ashley? Did you have any other questions, Ashley? Okay, she's good. I'm going to turn to Carrie.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a son who is going to be going into 1st grade this year, and he's in the gen ed classroom. And I have concerns about minutes and everything, but the biggest thing that I'm struggling with my district is that he was due for psychoeducational testing in May that didn't happen. And so he's supposedly on the list to be one of the first kids to go through it when they get back in the fall. Right now, our district is offering either distance or a hybrid in-person model. But I have been in touch with the special education program and I'm really struggling with getting answers to how they're going to provide the testing really in either environment. And so I just looking for some advice for how to kind of deal with that.
So from my understanding, the timeline for testing has not changed. So if your child was due for a reeval, they have 60 days to complete that. If your 60 days have gone and you haven't signed off on that, they're not in compliance on that.
Okay.
Now, some districts, they're saying we cannot do it, so there's probably going to be some leeway there. But at one point, there was a shelter at home. You know, nobody was supposed to be. But now things have opened up. People are going into stores with masks on and PPE equipment. I've had some parents arrange for an outside location where these tests can happen. You know, like at a picnic table or in your backyard, if the test person would come to your home and they're outdoors, or you're maybe comfortable one-on-one. Some of these tests can be done virtually, but many of them involve manipulating things like blocks and problem solving and writing. So some of that is going to have to be in person. But I think that given the right equipment, and the way that this is opened up to a certain degree now, they should be able to do that testing.
Right.
So if they haven't done it yet, you might ask the school, look, you know, why can't we finish this over the summer and be ready for, they won't talk to you, or just wondering. I don't know, Carrie's frozen.
Frozen, yeah. Are you there? She's frozen with a grin on her face. Oh, okay. Maybe
Oh, sorry.
I
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't really have answers, and the psychologist her email bounces back that she'll be back on August 19th. I'm concerned because he needs the testing to see if he qualifies for the learning center, which bothers me about if we go distance learning and I don't know what supports he needs. So that's why I feel like the other stuff I'm ready to just get his IEP and his minutes figured out for all his speech and OT, but I don't want to go another year without.
No, they
support.
cannot do that. They have to do the testing. I mean, I would even push for it to be done before school. And if you're getting a bounce back letter, I would write the director of special education for the district.
Well, I've included them all in the same.
Oh, good. All right. Well, just say, you're wanting it on board here.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Holly, you're up.
Hi, I'm Holly.
Hi.
I have two questions. The first one is about compensatory services. So our district in the spring, well, the whole state went to essentially 50% of school hours. And so all of our services were cut by 50%. So if he was supposed to get speech 2 times 30, he was getting speech 1 times 30. Is that a reason to pursue compensatory services?
I don't think they can just unilaterally cut your services.
All right. And is there a deadline on how long you can pursue that?
That's a legal question. I'm not exactly sure with that. It is, you have to, I believe it's a year to go back if it's a due process issue. Okay. There's a time frame for that. So that's something that I would look up to see how long you have to go back and say, but I would bring it up at an IEP meeting. I mean, we're not talking mediation or due process at this point. We're talking, what are you going to do to make up that time? Mm-hmm. So I would just try to do it within the IEP team and collaboratively and creatively, because, if we start butting heads with the school, I find that oftentimes there's an adversarial relationship there, and they'll dig their heels in. So I try very hard to not create that. I think it's reasonable to get the compensatory education, though, if services were cut. And that's one of the questions I'm going to ask the U.S. Department of Education. What constitutes compensatory time? Why would parents be requesting that? When is this? What is your guidance on that? And I'll give them an example. If you have speech twice a week and they only provided it once a week, are you entitled to that other speech therapy? Now, I have heard some states looking at, well, if they still made progress, it was enough. But how are they measuring that progress? Mm-hmm. Then this is my reason for data. So what was the goal? If he wasn't making the sounds then and he's still not making the sounds now, he didn't make progress. Right. So you have to figure out the benchmark there. I think that's going to weigh in with this compensatory education is adequate yearly progress. They're going to look at that.
Okay. And then can I ask one more quick question? Sure. My son's going into 8th grade, and our school district has come out with 2 programs, and I hear you and what you said about we don't have to agree to those. I appreciate that, because one is stay at home, but an online program that is not, it's asynchronous teaching. So recorded lessons, completely self-paced, self-directed. And the other one is a hybrid model of going to school 1 week, learning from home 1 week. We do not feel comfortable sending our son back into the school building. And what I just was hoping you could help me prepare a little bit for is my concern when I approach them is what they're going to say. He has a one-on-one, and I think they're going to say you could do the online program and he can be with my son online at the same time, the para. But for me, that's not the same as having a live teacher. His paras have been wonderful, but I don't. So I'm just wondering if you give me some language to prepare for that.
in your IEP, at the last part of the IEP for all of you guys, there's minutes of direct instruction that are for special education. It'll say something like 45 minutes for math instruction. That time cannot be a para.
But could it be if they say, well, you should do the remote program?
It depends on what the remote program is. It has to be a special education teacher teaching your child.
Okay.
So, you know, if it's a small group, they can put him or her in a small group and, you know, do that interactive whiteboard lesson where there's actually, it doesn't have to be just your child. It could be like a, you know, special education math class for 7th graders or whatever, and have 5 kids on the screen. But there has to be somebody teaching. So the one-sided learning, I know that's what a lot of districts pulled up last year because they were struggling and what are we going to do? And this is, you know, but that's not a program for the kids, and any kid. I think all the kids, the whole country needs teachers teaching, but especially children that can't really facilitate this independently.
So Donna, it's 4:04, but I feel like there's still a few more questions and this conversation is going so well. So if you're okay with staying on for a little bit longer, and if anyone needs to leave, feel free to just check out. Myra, I'm gonna unmute her. Myra had a few questions. I think one was answered, but I don't know if you wanted to ask the question, Myra, about your other child. I know many of us have other children besides our child with 22Q, and she has a specific question for that. Hey, Myra.
Hi. Well, I did get the answers regarding speech because my daughter was only giving 20 minutes from 60 minutes, but that is something that you answered already. So my other concern was Emma is considered immune compromised. She's on immunosuppressant medication. Mm-hmm. And in her current IEP, they already know that. And they had like extra hand washing procedures. But with COVID, you know, we don't know how that will affect her. So I'm planning to keep her home. But she has a little brother also that I want to keep him home because I feel it defeats the purpose of her not going and then him going.
Right.
But he's also special needs. He's hard of hearing. I have my concerns with that, with wearing a mask. He's not visual, lips, facial expressions. So
okay, that's
I'm willing to keep him home because of those purposes.
Right.
But for a lot of us, we do have children, you know, more than one. So would there be anything where we can bring to the table that due to her sister that has 22Q is immunocompromised, we are requesting him to be home as well? Like, I don't know if there's anything that can be pushed
I
towards
think,
a sibling, because
I think so. I mean, I would imagine so, because, you know, you've got someone in the home.
I'm not sure if I'm asking that right, but.
You know, I don't know what the district will say per se about your other child, but it seems to me that if you're concerned about that other child bringing the virus home to your immunocompromised child, then that's a concern. One of the things that I did go on the CDC website just a couple days ago to do a little research about how they're looking at immune compromised persons and the COVID. And they're still trying to figure this out. There was a video that was posted from the 22Q International Foundation saying that they don't have a lot of data yet, and they haven't necessarily seen that that alone is going to put you more at risk for a severe complication, but they don't know for sure. So, you know, that's one of the things that might be more of a risk. So, you know, it's kind of hard. They're still collecting all this data for everything. You know, some kids with this syndrome have the immune compromise, and they have heart issues, they have lung issues, they have, you know, a multitude of other things going on. They're much more medically involved. And there's other kids with 22q that have, they're never sick. You know, they've got maybe, you know, one or two little things with the immune that's off, but generally they're very healthy like everybody else. They don't really bring home illness very often. And so, you know, it would be a little harder to guess whether that COVID would react with that child negatively. But it's a risk. I mean, the COVID is a risk regardless, I think, whether your child is with 22 or not. I mean, I would want to be really careful about exposing them in a school setting, figuring out how they're going to distance. I mean, how is that going to happen? And kids washing their hands and masks, and it as a former teacher, I mean, I have to tell you, that would be like a nightmare in my classroom. I don't see how that could be very easily implemented, considering the number of adults in and out of that school building, the number of different people and the exposures that are there just inherently in the school building, how that's going to be a really safe environment. So it's tough.
We have one more question from Jessica. Jessica, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. You there, Jessica?
Hi, I'm here. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I have my video off too. So say hello to everybody. Hello. Okay, so I too was planning on keeping my son home this year. Our district is supposed to be coming out with a decision tomorrow, so we'll see, you know, what even is going to be option. But my main issue when we were doing the spring was that he's in a general ed setting, but gets push in and pull out services with two different special ed teachers. And I felt like he was in two separate programs, two separate classrooms. The general ed teacher was posting all of her assignments, and I was basically his para all day, sitting, doing everything with him. And then he was able to meet almost daily with the special ed teachers, you know, on the Google Hangouts, which was great, but they were doing kind of totally different work. They were almost basically more like basic skills and review and things like that, but not pertaining to the lessons that were posted from the general ed teacher. So starting off in September, I'm concerned that we're going to be right back to it. I'm just wondering how I kind of set the tone for the year and get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, I think the special ed, it sounds like if you've had a one-on-one real-time teacher, that may be working out okay. The piece of it that isn't is the push in general ed. So they're going to need to figure out a creative way to support him in that environment. Right. And it could be a small group hangout with, you know, 4 or 5 other kids to reteach and pre-teach the material that's being covered in there. It could be offering aid time to go over with your child what it is that was covered in that classroom and to help them through the assignment.
Right.
But I don't think most kids with 22q could access that general ed environment without some level of support. I mean, it depends on the child, but you know, most of us that have gone through this with 22q kids, I mean, they need to be handheld going through all that general ed stuff. So who's going to do that? And as I said earlier, you're the parent, you're not the teacher, you're willing to help, but you're not willing to do all of the heavy lifting here. And that the school is going to have to provide some of that. So, and they should be modifying the work to a level that is appropriate for your child to access it.
Well, right. And that, to be honest, was an issue from the very beginning. And I felt like I had, you know, kept crying out for help. And I basically started modifying things on my own and just kind of submitting whatever I saw fit at that point, because, he wasn't able to do everything that they were setting up for him. So,
yeah.
Okay.
So ask for more help.
Yes. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, I think we have one last question. I know, Kim, you said on to not ask if we didn't have time, but I think we have time. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and ask your question, Kim.
Hi.
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 Hi. So my son is going into high school. He's going in 9th grade. He's not really immunocompromised, but we still are not really comfortable sending him at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to know if we are still, can we still ask for the services in home? Like the things that she's talking about, the one-on-one and the just having that direct interaction with someone. Can we still ask for that?
So if virtual is an option for you, like they're not saying everybody needs to go back. So you're gonna say through the IEP that you're not comfortable, you're gonna do virtual. And you have an IEP, correct, Kim?
Yes. Yes.
Then you can ask for all this
Okay.
based on
Great.
what the needs are. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm curious for the community. So I have a mindset when I'm thinking about this. Can we do a show of hands of the number of you that are pretty decided that you're going to keep your child home? How many of you are not sending your child based on the 22Q? So is that, I can't see everybody, Lindsay, but
yeah, it's about half. Half of people's videos are not on. So
are not on, but I'm feeling like this is pretty much the community is saying as a group that we're scared. We're scared to send the kids back, and we just need some support here. Again, I'm going to invite you to send us questions. You can send them to me directly or send it to the foundation. Lindsay and I talked about having this forum multiple times as the year goes on. I'm hoping when we get together next time, I will have met with the Department of Education and can share some of that with you. And tell us what's working and tell us what isn't. Let's support each other. Let's be collectively a resource for each other. And if things are going well in your district, if you could let me know so that I could research whatever platform you're using, whatever programs we're using, and we can then share that information among ourselves and try to be, like I said, a collective voice, because we are stronger in numbers. The reason that they agreed to talk to me was because I was part of a foundation, and the foundation has thousands of people associated with it. They would not have spoken to me, Donna Cutler-Landsman. Who am I? But the foundation collectively has a voice. So I think we need to be proactive with it and use the voice in a polite way to try to understand what we can expect, what we can rightfully demand, or push for more aggressively, and what resources might be available, what monies might be available that we can bring back to the district and say, hey, if you apply to Dr. Sheehan in the Department of Education, he said that there's a grant. I would like to even invite him to our forum if we could get him to come. Wouldn't that be nice if he could be a part of our collective forum? But I don't know how busy he is, He's probably pretty busy. But anyways, I appreciate hearing from you because I learn a lot from your experiences as well. So
yeah, I think this was a really eye-opening. I myself have going into first grade child with 22Q, and I'm all in the same boat as you guys, and I have an education background as well as Donna, and last spring was pretty challenging, kind of what Jessica was talking about. I felt like I was my son's para. I felt like he really thrived though, in many ways. But I also have a daughter that I pretty much had to abandon. And luckily she's an independent learner, but, finishing up the school year is one thing. Starting a whole new school year is a completely different thing. And so I think my biggest takeaway, and I think for all of you, one of your biggest takeaways should just be that, we can fight for what we need in a, kind and kind and caring way to, keep the peace with our school and school district and support staff. But we can't really put up with what was going on in spring. The pandemic isn't going away anytime soon. There still isn't even a vaccine. And once that vaccine comes out, we don't even know how it's going to affect our kids. So this is going to be an ongoing thing. And I think we just need to be the best advocates now more than ever for our kids. And so we want to be able to offer these kind of open forums for you guys to talk. So we're definitely going to try to do this monthly to try to be able to give you guys an opportunity and kind of a platform to do that. And like I said, if there's anything you guys ever need from us, this program was provided free through the foundation, but also our education station, that is our direct main resource for education consulting, which is what Donna does for us, is still free at this time. So please feel free to reach out to me if you need more help with accessing that. I know many of you that are on this have already accessed that, but you can just go to 22qfamilyfoundation.org, and then under the education tab, you'll see it there. Donna, do you want to go ahead and share your email, and I can share my email as well?
Sure. My email is just Cutler Landsman with no hyphen. So it's just one big word at gmail.com. It's real easy. It's just my last name, no hyphen, at Gmail. So I encourage you to send your questions, and I'm going to, make a list of questions. So
I just sent them in the chat box as well. And mine is Lindsay at 22qfamilyfoundation.org. So thank you guys so much. This was great.
Thank you. It was wonderful seeing all your faces. Stay healthy, everybody. Stay safe. All right.
And we'll be in touch too. If you don't follow us already, please do on Instagram at 22qfamily, on Facebook at 22qfamily, as well as Twitter. We're not so active, but we will be putting out more information about future events like this. So thank you guys. Have a great night. Stay safe.
Bye, everybody. Take care.